Kidderminster Harriers fans podcast. Hello, I'm Wes. I'm joined by Matt and Nick. Guys, hello. Thank you for joining me. It's really hard to get people on. Who would have thought, eh? Everyone shouts about it at the game, but then they don't want to afterwards. Adam Murray is the new gaffer. And I'll go straight to you, Matt, and get your thoughts on that. Do you think he was the right choice?
Yeah, very good choice. Knows the league, has won the league. I know he had a bit of a budget filed, but that didn't do Brian Talbot any favours back in 2000, did it, at Rushden? So, yeah, knows the club as well. I think it's a really good appointment made in just under 2 weeks after Phil left. So, yeah, hats off to the chairman and Dean Oldsworth. I think they did get a bit of flack off some of it very unnecessary, if I'm honest. But, hats off to them. And, yeah, be interesting to see what happens. But great appointment in my eyes.
Nick, your thoughts, please?
Yeah, I think, look, anything that we got on board after Phil was always going to be an interesting one. I think Phil will, divide opinion across the fan base, which he has. I think his tenure will be judged differently, maybe in 6 to 12 months. But I guess it's Adam Murray's job to mean to get that view in that he's done a better job than Phil, and Phil will just be forgotten about. So yeah, like Matt says, I think it's a good appointment, knows the level, and it seems like more of a sensible appointment than maybe some of the ones we would have had previously. And like Matt said, really credit to Richard and Dean for getting, a good quality candidate at this level. To be fair.
Now, I said a lot over the season, especially towards the end. I thought Phil's big downfall was his naivety. Do you think we'll get the same sort of thing from Adam or not? He doesn't seem like the kind of character who would be naive, Matt. What do you reckon?
No, he knows the level. I think with Phil, he was new to the level, wasn't he? Vastly experienced guy, but very, very inexperienced at our level. I think the way we started out, start the season, it was a bit of a Eustace 2.0, very total football, quite lightweight. We were going to get done on set pieces. We were going to get out muscled at times, and we didn't seem to have a plan B for that really. And of course, I think it was just after the October run where we had a bit of a bad patch, a few injuries as well, and he rejigged this 3-4-3 formation, toughened us up a bit, and we had a bit of a different side to us when we needed to mix it in with people, which I thought made us a bit more successful. But I think with Adam, he knows this league. I know he's in the South last season, a bit of a different, same standard, but different league really. But I think he'll know what's needed to get out of this league. A bit like what Russ Penn did really. There'll be no chopping and change in terms of how we set out and all that side of things as time goes on. I think he'll know what's needed from the start, and he'll look to build that from the first moment really, rather than having to rearrange the deck chairs, as it were.
Nick, do you think having experience at the non-league level, sorry, not Neville, do you think that will help Adam as in not be so naive like Phil was, which he was, to be fair?
I think a lot of it will come down to recruitment, and I think one thing that's been massively overlooked by the general fan base was the difference in the level of recruitment. I mean, if you go back to the National League days when we had that sort of unfortunately one season in the division, looked at the team that started that season, some of the players in that squad, NKP, Pierce, Joe Leasley, who I know was a good player at the time, but you sort of see the level that he's been playing at recently, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Kieran Phillips, Kai Lissamore, Jerry, and then you sort of compare that with some of the players that we bought in for the level below with a significantly cut budget.
Yep.
And you're looking at Maz, Wiley Reynolds, Worrell, Morrison, Devine, Candler, Summerfield and Davis. And I think, you look at those names on paper, and I know who I would rather be starting a National League campaign without out those two groups of players. And then when you factor in the likes of Penny and Summerfield getting injured, they are significant blows. I was as frustrated as many fans, though, when, Maz Coyer being taken off with like 10, 15 minutes to go. Those kind of changes grated on me over time. So I think, look, Adam Murray in his season winning the league with Fylde, like Matt said and alluded to, it's a big budget there. You're probably talking 2 to 3 times the budget of the second nearest team, certainly at that point. And whilst Brian Talbot didn't do it that season with Rushden, if you look through the sort of National League North winners, if you like, over a sort of decade-long period, it's either money or momentum that wins that title. And if you look at some of the teams coming up, Macclesfield for one have got both. They've got money and they've got momentum. Fylde, you would think, will have money. So I certainly don't think it's going to be easy. But like I said, I think we've got a really sensible appointment with Adam, and hopefully he's got those contacts within the sort of lower echelons and below our division as well, where he can go and find some talent to excite us, because that's what he said in his interview. It's going to be around entertainment and sort of putting bums on seats. And I think he was unbeaten for 12 months plus at Eastbourne at home. So if he can replicate that at Agborough, 80% of the fan base will be happy with that go to the home games, which is great.
It's never going to be 100%, is it, though, Nick? You know, there's always going to be one moaner out there.
Yeah, well, right, yeah, for sure. Certainly in the East Stand.
That's why I left. That's why I left. So talking there about, so I was chatting with my friend Stu earlier today, and he said, I think we'll have to have a whole rejig of the squad and stuff. And I said, well, you say that, but we were one game away from winning the whole league. So I'm not sure. I don't think they were a bad team. I just think the last 2 games out of the whole season let us down big time. And I know that has general connotations on players' mindsets and stuff. We don't know what happened. We don't know why they just went south in the last 2 games. But I would suggest that the players I'd keep most of them, to be honest. And it's great to see that Hemo, top scorer in the league, and Morgs have signed on for another season. Matt, do you think that'll mean we'll just keep those 2 strikers, or do you think we'll get someone else in as well?
I think we'll have to get someone else in. Keeping Hemmings, he was absolutely unbelievable last season. Murray Morgan-Smith, I think, is an absolute club legend, and even at his age, the way he plays, he doesn't play like a guy who's in his mid to late 30s, but he is starting to show. Age is catching upon him a little bit, really, I think. And I do think we need a couple of fresher faces up there. I don't think Ben Beresford's the answer. He's been released by Birmingham. He didn't look fit when he came back. We need an extra option up there. So it depends what sort of role they give Smith, if I'm honest. And it's harsh saying that, but hopefully I'm proved wrong, because I was up for seeing Hemmings go last season. He's kind of banged in. I'm enjoying the pie, man. It's not good for me waistline, but that pie's good, you know. But yeah, I think that they'll need to get a couple in. Obviously, Maz is gone. Whether he comes back, I don't know. Dave Worrell's a big loss from an attacking point of view. His assist stats were through the roof since he's come in. So that's two players really they need to replace straight off if they're not doing that already. It depends who stays. It doesn't need radical changes. I think looking at that 11 that lost against Chester and had that good run up until the Southport and Chester fiascos, it was a good 11. You know, you're probably looking at maybe another leader type, Shane Byrne type character somewhere in there. Maybe you put that with Zach Brown in midfield. I don't know. You can't really change the back three. And you like to think when Fulks is back fit, he's going to be just as good as what Worrell was, because he was missed when he got smashed up at Oxford.
Absolutely.
So I don't think, maybe a bit of depth off the bench. You know, you look at that bench, there wasn't many game changers. But yeah, it all depends on who we keep. There's going to be players naturally who are going to attract interest. You know, people like Morrison, Richards. I thought Hemmings would have probably attracted an offer given his form as well. Thankfully, he stayed. So it all depends really. But I think, yeah, we were the highest scorers in the league last season. But you know, I think we were lacking up there at times. As harsh as that sounds, I think we were. And you look at games at Alfreton, the Chester at home. There's a couple of us at home where Rush all at New Year's Day. Yeah, we create lots of chances. We should have been banging a lot of goals. You get results against a couple of those clubs. We'd have won that well before the Hereford game. So it all depends who stays really. But there's a very good base there, and there's some very good young players there as well. Candler's one guy who really impressed me, even defence midfield. Zach Brown, I'm an absolute lover of. I think he's absolutely fantastic now. Folks, McNally, I think is a fantastic player. Brilliant young guys. There's some good young players there as well. It depends who he fancies and who he can keep, but that's the biggest question at the moment.
So, do you think out of the team, out of all the players that haven't got contracts, the biggest one to keep will be Kyle Morrison, and do you think he'd be captain next season? Nick, it's to you, mate.
I think look, if Morrison stays, I would imagine he's got to be close in on that captaincy. I don't think it was Phil Brown's cleverest moment making Amari the captain, because I think it just put him in a difficult position when maybe Amari was tired, fatigued, and sort of, Amari, like Matt said, legend, absolute workhorse. Possibly, yes, we may have seen the back of him, but I still think there is a part for him to play this season. But I personally do like to have captains that are a little bit further back in the pitch, whether that be the goalkeeper, the centre halves, or Shane Burns sort of CDM kind of position. So I'd have no issues with Morrison getting the captaincy, and I think to probably retain someone of his ilk at this level, those are kind of going to be the sort of small details potentially that get those kind of deals maybe over the line. But Matt, it's interesting that you say about Zach Brown. You're a massive fan of him. You can come and sit with me now in the East Stand. I think we're about the only two fans of him, because I feel like he's one of the most underrated players we've had for a little while actually. And every time he just moves, you hear tuts in the East Stand about Zach Brown. So interesting, Matt, that you're also a fellow raver around Zach Brown, because there doesn't seem to be that many, although he maybe has won a few more around this season.
I'm one of the ones that have kind of come onto that since maybe New Year.
Okay. So recent development then.
Used to frustrate me when Penn used to play him a couple of years ago, and obviously he had a key part in the promotion run. He was in that 10 role, wasn't he? But I suppose he's improved because he's been able to, because of the injuries he's had. But I think since he's kind of grown into a proper player now for me.
Yeah.
Again, humble pie. I don't know what you have me on here, Wes, really, because I ain't got a clue what I'm on about.
Well, let's hope Amari has another great season now based on that as well, and get more humble pie. Sorry, Wes, to answer your question, Morrison, I think he sort of resonates with the fan base in terms of the way that he plays football, I guess, that sort of blood and thunder, classic sort of old school centre half. So I don't have no issues with that. But I guess ultimately it depends on kind of the characters that Adam Murray tends to want to be as captain, and actually Morrison has been shipped out on loan under Murray's tenure in the past at a previous club. So whether that plays any part in whether he stays with us or not, I don't know. But yeah, certainly personally, I'm a fan, and I think he could be a good option.
Talking about Hemo, beginning of last season, my friend Stu was like, why are we keeping Hemo and Amari, man? Can't we get some new players in? And then at December, I was like, are you sure you want to get rid of him? He's like, I don't know. But people were crying out for a 20-goal-a-season striker, and we had the guy who scored the most goals. And they're still moaning that we didn't have a good enough striker, which I thought was a bit stupid. I did see that Sammy Austin, former Harriers favourite, has been released by Notts County. Do you think he's a bit too much, or do you think he's a bit too old? I don't even know his age, to be honest with you. Do you think he's a bit too much, Matt? Or what do you reckon?
I think it's too ambitious. I'd love to see it. Whether they put in a bid, it's just the worst thing he's going to say if you do put an offer in is no, isn't it? But he'll have clubs at League Two and conference level, bigger resources than us. Love to see it, but
would have been interesting if we got promoted. Might have been a conversation then. But I think going back down to the National League North will be a step, quite literally a step too far for someone like Sam Austin. I think maybe a Solihull Moors kind of level might be an option for him.
Right. Can you two chat between yourselves? I'm going to try and find out how old Sammy Austin is, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm sure we can. Interestingly, Matt, you mentioned around Amari maybe definitely playing a role, and I still think that can be the case too. I don't really like the idea of him playing 40 plus matches, the majority of those 90-minute matches like he did last season. But interestingly, I had a quick look online, and a guy called George Alexander, I think he was one of the top scorers in the National League South from Eastbourne, scored 24 goals at centre forward. So if you put his goals alongside Amari's and Maz's, that would be pretty exciting. And with Amari off the bench, I think if Amari gives 20, 25 minutes of full pelt, he's a handful for any player. And I think he gets dragged down with the whole sort of, how sort of heavily handled he is throughout games. I think that doesn't help him towards the latter part of a match. Whereas if you just had 20, 25 minutes, I can't think of many worse players to defend against when you're a tired part-time centre-back than someone like Amari Morgan-Smith. But I think over 95 minutes, he kind of, at this age it kind of hasn't quite got that same level of intensity, maybe.
I totally agree. It's an experienced guy in the dressing room as well, isn't it? It's not just what he'll bring to the table as maybe an impact player. It's what he is around the dressing room. Like he clearly loves the club. You can see when he scores, it's a massive relief. It's like a supporter, isn't it? And that can't be bought. I agree. He can still play a part. My only concern is if that's the if that's the way we're going to go down next season, which it might work if he changes formation and maybe puts him as a 2 rather than just one with two wide men alongside him. But like you say, it's coming across people like Ellis every week, and
I would sign Ellis, by the way. Mark Ellis, I would sign if he's available
at 36, 37.
In a back 5, maybe just purely for the goal threat. To be honest, and then if you've got a Morrison, I can't imagine McNally will stay. To be honest, I think he'll probably move on. But if he doesn't, someone of that ilk, maybe Penny if he can get himself fit. But Penny, Morrison, and Ellis,
Caleb, isn't it? Yeah.
Instead of again, I can't see Caleb staying. But I think those 3 centre halves in the National League North. I know what you mean about Ellis, his age, but I think he scored something like 12 plus league goals, which. Even if he, takes a little bit of covering at the back, I'd sort of take that, to be honest.
Yeah, it depends. Are they part-time, surely? Because that's the trick, isn't it? It's trying to track.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it?
It's kind of times moved on since the Bird days. We're able to get players in, not on an expensive full-time wage, but we're able to supplement their full-time and part-time. Yeah. You're looking at $1,000 a week for some of these players just for them to come full-time, and some of it's a gamble, isn't it?
I'm not 100% sure, Matt, but I think Ellis went from full-time the season before last to part-time at Chorley. Can't remember. It might have been Barrow, somewhere like that. I'm sure he played at. Might not be Barrow, but somewhere like that. Carlisle. I can't remember. But again, I could be wrong, but I'm fairly sure he was full-time and now went to Chorley part-time. So I don't know. Maybe he's settled into a part-time life now. And I'm not saying he'd be my number 1 transfer target, but I do think we could do worse at centre-half purely as well for the experience and sort of nous, really. But yeah, I'm sure there's other options, but he'd certainly be a goal scoring threat, which I know Phil Brown touched on a few times, the new round goals from centre backs, and then Morrison comes in, scores a few, but I'm not sure there's been many. Yeah, but I'm not sure many have scored more than Mark Ellis. So it's interesting that you mentioned him, Matt.
So, do you think if you have 5 at the back, bear in mind the 2, they could be wing backs, if you will. Do you think having 3 centre backs gives you that option to not have to worry about one being a bit slower than the other 2?
Yeah, they complement each other, don't they? So Caleb's biggest quality brings that back 3 is his pace, isn't it?
Yep.
McNally and Morrison aren't slow, but you've got like someone who's got half a yard on him. Caleb just sweeps up brilliantly, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's good at that.
Yeah, I think the back 3 obviously got us promoted, didn't it? And it served us well last season for the good moments, and I think it certainly complements the players we got. Like I say, it depends who stays. If you get 2 really good centre halves in, like we did with Badrami and Cameron, you could go like a
4-3, couldn't you? Yeah, wow. Yeah,
I know, but getting players like that in,
like once a decade.
Yeah,
Badrami was.
Yeah, that's a bit of a freak signing, wasn't it?
Unbelievable, yeah. I mean, interestingly, he has had an absolute horror show of injuries post Harriers. I think he's had 2 season-long injuries back to back, so I'm not quite sure what level of health he's in. And I think he's at Burton. That could potentially, on a loan sort of a deal, might even be a conversation at some point, maybe. I'm sure that will be kicked around. It's just whether he can get himself back fit. And I think one of the challenges when you may be trying to attract a player back after maybe some difficult injuries is to come and put them in the National League North. I mean, you just choose the South if you have the option. If you're going for that level, the rough and tumble of the National League North coming off the back of a couple of bad injuries. Saw what happened with Luke Summerfield, who I thought was a top quality player to watch as a fan. I just really enjoyed the style of football he had. You can't underestimate the impact a career-ending potentially injury it has, and that is a risk at this level. So maybe he wouldn't fancy it, but I don't know. It'd be pretty exciting, wouldn't it?
Touching on Luke Summerfield there. I wonder what happens. So if an injured player who's coming back in rehab and whatever is then let go, or the contract runs out, so they've let go from the team they're playing for, what happens with the rehab then? I mean, what would they do?
It's insurance. If you've got, most players now will have some, well, you would anticipate they'll have some kind of insurance cover. So, yeah.
I imagine, yeah.
So do you think Luke, bearing in mind, I was chatting with Luke at Brackley away when we won and we thought we were going to win the league.
Good night.
And I said to Luke, dude, you've been injured for a season now. Does that mean you're a season, you're going to be like, how old are you? He's like 37. I was like, does that mean you're now 36? He's like, yes, it does. So I was like, Are you staying for next season or what's going on? I kind of hope he does stay. I hope he gets to the fitness level where he can stay. Basically, that's what I hope, because he was amazing to watch. His passes were Beckham-esque, to be honest. They're awesome. Any thoughts, Matt, on that?
It's tricky. It's what player you get after that.
Yeah.
He might end up retiring after that. I don't think personally can play in a 2 in midfield if you play in a 3-4-3 because of the age and injury he's got. So you'd have to accommodate him in a system. Is he good enough to be accommodated? Definitely. Play him deep, because like Nick said, unbelievable player. You'd be picking out passes left, right, and centre. Absolutely joy to watch. Real key player in that start of the season where we're just absolutely battering teams. But it depends at that age and that sort of injury and that length of time out. It's what play you get after that.
I think the other thing to bear in mind, sorry, Matt, is the managers sign players, don't they? And that's a Phil Brown signing. Will Adam Murray want to have? Let's face it, it was pretty much one of our flagship, if not the flagship signing of pre-season last year.
Yeah.
Will Adam Murray want to retain someone who was ultimately Phil's player, Phil's choice? Sometimes that can play a part in whether a player's retained or not. I think the Hemo and the Murray Morgan Smith one's slightly different. I think it maybe appearances has kicked in and there's been some sort of clause in the contract. It seems to be quite coincidental that that's been announced the day the manager's sort of been announced also. So I don't know whether that was more of a clause-based one, whereas the rest are all likely to be this decision-led by the management team, I guess.
I saw something, and I don't know if it was on Twitter, or I'm on the Harriers one anyway. I didn't know if it was on Twitter or Facebook, but it was a bit of a cheeky comment when they said, "Look, this is a new manager. Promotion, please," or basically promotion, please, or that's it, or something. And I just thought to myself, did you see that, or was that just me?
Yeah, I know it is. Yeah.
So
it's not me, just in case you think
no,
it is.
No.
Thanks, pal. So do you reckon? Was that the club said that, or was that someone else with the emblem of the club?
Just a comment. He's obviously got Harriers in his Instagram tag. It's an opinion, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think when Phil was kept on, it's like, well, if he doesn't get us up, that's going to make his position very, very tricky to keep hold of. Obviously, I think there's more to his departure than him just finishing third and us absolutely swallowing it. But yeah, it's a bit of a strange, but I suppose sort of valid. If we end up finishing ninth, then we'll have a different conversation this time last year.
It's like, are the teams looking at the league in our league next season thinking, well, Harriers, they're a massive threat? Do you reckon that's what the bookies will be thinking or not?
Yeah.
Or...
Yeah.
Well, I kind of hope so.
I think
really hope so.
Us, Macclesfield, Chester. I think Buxton and Chorley and Hereford will probably build on a bit. Hereford are quite ambitious. They're local to my one of the local pubs around here near me in Worcester. It's run by a Hereford fan, sadly, because it's a decent boozer. Yeah, I suppose he didn't eject me on a Sunday after I give him a bit of stick, but he equalised with the "we'll see you next season" comment.
Yeah,
but
that's nice.
They're looking to keep most of that team from next year, and I think they'll push on. So, but I think the standout ones are us, Macclesfield, probably Chester, and Fylde. You can't rule them out. It depends what sort of they got in. But
if the Chairman's still got the appetite, Fylde will be bang at it, and if Hamilton stays, they'll be in the top 3. Just him alone is pretty much enough to guarantee that. He's a very special player that's got a very weird mindset in terms of where he wants to play his football, given his talents that far exceed the National League North. And if anyone's ever seen him play at Agbury, he's pretty special. So there's just a bit of a weird one. I see it slightly differently in that. Yeah, I think we'll always be banded around in that sort of mix of expected to be up there, and fingers crossed that we are. But I think one thing that is overlooked, and again, I don't know how true this is, but the rumours are that we never really have the highest end budget, I guess, pro-rata with the part-time teams. If you look at someone like Brackley last season, the budget they must have had to be able to they took our captain off us based on wages, reading between the lines. So even these part-time teams that you think, well, we must have a bigger budget than them, we might have, but maybe not pro-rata for the hourly rate or whatever it works out to.
Yeah.
And I think teams like Buxton, Curzon will be more, I think the league will just be a bit more mature. Chester will probably be better for the experience of getting to the playoff final. Fylde will have a budget if the chairman's got the appetite. Hereford, like you said, Matt, will want to go again. Buxton and Curzon, who are good sides, good clubs, will have had another period of time with a full-time split. And Macclesfield, like you say, they've got the momentum and they've got money. So I think it's going to be a challenge next season. I'm really glad Scunthorpe went up. I think if they would have stayed in the division, crikey, that would have been a real sort of difficult horror division, really. But look, proof will be in the pudding, but I don't think we've got the biggest budget, and it'd be interesting whether Adam Murray brings in a number 2 or whether he keeps that budget aside to try and develop the squad, because I think that could potentially be an angle that we have, or an advantage we have this season over maybe the Phil Brown and Neil McDonald era, is that they would have been fairly expensive, I would imagine, as a pair. If Adam goes solo, yes, we might lose a little bit on that sort of management structure, but we have got quite a good backroom staff from the outside looking in. Maybe that will free up a little bit of budget for us to go be really competitive in the transfer window kind of thing in the pre-season.
So names being banded around today for his number 2, Stuart Watkiss. Remember him?
Yeah.
With that name, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that when we went down. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's not the greatest PR, is it? If you just
not,
come in,
but I think,
because you could argue that was the start of the demise is too strong of a word, but
no, that's
the downfall in terms of from sort of recent glories, if you will.
We were done when he come in, but the season after was awful.
Yeah, Stuart. Yeah,
but,
he's from Wolverhampton apparently, so he's not far away.
How old is he now, Nick? Have you got that?
I haven't got that level of detail, but actually, I say that. Someone sent me an interview. I think he's 53.
Oh, is he?
Early 50s. Yeah.
He must have been young when he come to us.
Early 50s. Yeah. It must have been probably one of his, if not his first job, one of his first jobs. I think I was really young then, so I don't really overly remember like the nuances of the season, but I think we're in a bit of a mess, if memory sort of serves me right. Off the field.
Molby had a budget, didn't he? The budget relegation was banded around back then. You might remember that, Wes, because you're similar age to me, aren't you? And
to be young.
He went, and it was just awful, horrible. It was horrible.
I've got a name for you, Wes.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, well, no, unfortunately not. So it'd be kind of strange if he returns like full circle. Ricardo Reese.
Ricardo Reese.
Yeah, I remember that name. Yeah.
Apparently, we were looking at him amongst other clubs in the sort of January time. He plays at Merthyr, so unless he goes elsewhere, he will be playing against us. And
is he the striker?
Yeah.
If you've seen any of his YouTube, like his goals, I think he's been top scorer. He scored 30 plus goals from centre forward for about 5 seasons in a row. I think he's been top scorer for several seasons in a row in the division that he's been in. And the nature of his goals are like proper social media vibes, long ranges, top corners.
I get it, Nick. I get it, but it's all about the opposition you're playing against, pal. So I'm not sure that the league in Wales is as good as the North. I wouldn't have said it was. And what they do in the North, they should be in the South, surely.
Very strange for the geography side of things, but
always is.
If you've not seen any clips of him, he looks a baller.
He's playing League below, Wes.
Pardon?
He went League of Wales. He's playing League below.
Was he? Yeah, but
he wasn't playing like Sunday League.
He wasn't playing Talbot Town and all that.
Sorry, I thought because when I was in Wales, like you had the Haverford and stuff. They've qualified for Europe next season.
Yeah,
no, thankfully, no, he's not in that division.
No, he's not. Okay, so I can't remember. And TWS were in that one as well. So I thought
he's actually been linked to Football League clubs though. This guy. So I actually think, ironically, given what you just said, I think he's probably actually outside of our reach in terms of getting him in. But like Matt said around part-time players, you just don't know what these guys do outside of football in terms of a primary job. I always remember Gaz Dean at Brackley, always a player, certainly for a period of time, felt like he was like our nemesis. It balls like a magnet to his head. But I think he's got a sort of really successful sort of business outside of football. So, you'd have to go to like League One effectively to keep his finances in to the same level, which he's obviously not going to be able to do. And sometimes that is our challenge at full time. I think being able to attract these really good part-time players into full time, they'll actually be taking a big pay cut. And unless they're of an age where they feel they can really kick on, it's just a hard sell, I guess, for the likes of Dean Holdsworth and Richard Lane, etc.
Yeah. Listen, guys, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. So I want to give you both a minute each to have your final word, because the final word is changing now into Kidderminster Harriers Fans Podcast, KHFP. So who would like to go first for their final word on what we're looking forward to?
Oh, you can
Go
go
on,
next
Matt.
if you like. Go on,
Oh,
mate. I need to think.
so this is more in terms of like next season, Wes, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, look, I'm more hopeful that we're going to get more positive results at home and positive performances. I want to see a team that is attractive. I go to football to be entertained, not just purely to win, as great as that is. So hopefully Adam Murray can deliver that and the fan base stays with him. Because at the minute it's great to see that attendances have been growing consistently year on year, and that's a good place to be. It's where you want to be watching football with a decent crowd. So yeah, good luck to Adam. Good luck to his management team, whoever he brings in, and hopefully we can have an exciting summer of transfer activity, including Ricardo Reis.
Well, we'll try and tap him up for sure. Matt, thank you, Nick. Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah, so obviously a bit of a worry amongst the fan base with Phil going, but I think the club have been very, very good, very swift, really, in getting a very, very good, ambitious appointment. It shows that they mean business. It shows they care. It shows we're on the right track. I think it's a fantastic appointment. I think, the fans, the ambition's still there. I think the fans still need to be positive about that. The attendances are still up. Hope that can keep going. And I wish Adam all the best, and hopefully wish him all the best of luck in his recruitment and also his retention, because that's the tricky part. But I'm really looking forward to next season. Obviously gutted, still speechless after the last couple of weeks, but moving on to this season, I think we're heading the right direction to have a successful season.
Absolutely, fellas. Thank you so much for being on the Kidderminster Harriers Fans Podcast, episode 2. If you enjoyed this, please hit the like button, and also what would really be helpful would be if you hit the subscribe button and told all your friends about it as well. Your Harriers friends or whoever friends, it doesn't matter. So that'd be great. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Nick. I'm sure we'll catch up with you again soon. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.